Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And today, yesterday, we had the final round of the X-Prix 2022 Championship. And the racing was pretty good. There was a lot of action, a lot of crashes at this one. And it was a bit of a shock who was crashing. And in a way, it kind of ruined the end to the championship. And I think that's got a lot to do with how X-Prix is set up. And I'll be talking about the Uruguay Island X-Prix and my thoughts on this second season of X-Prix as well. And I'll talk briefly about World Touring Cars at the end, because I have watched those as well. But I'll start with, is X-Prix better now than it was in the first season? Yes, absolutely. In the first season, they were kind of fiddling with the format a lot, trying to find the best way to make it work. And some things worked, some things didn't. This season, they seemed a lot more set on how they wanted it to be. And I think it has worked better. The racing has been mostly entertaining. It's still a bit of a... It's like some of the races are a bit messy. And when you only have 4 or 5 cars, there's contact, you lose a couple. The racing after that isn't always great because you're just letting 2 cars go around basically. But it does mix things up quite a lot. I think they've moved to shorter tracks and you have laps. So we do a couple of laps each. That's much better than how it was last year when they were just doing like one long circuit and then switching driver and they do the same circuit. The shorter tracks I think have definitely worked in their favour. The format of how they're having the qualifying and then the races and whatnot, it's a lot better this year than it was. But there are things that I don't like. It is still very gimmicky, and this is just a thing with all electric racing series where they can't just have straight racing, it has to be something gimmicky. Like in Formula E you have like attack mode and fan boost, things like that, and pure ETCR, where it is like the electric touring cars, battle gates and duels, and I know a lot of that's down to the fact that they've only got like 4 cars they have to share, but it's still not very entertaining to watch half the time because most of it is just boring. And apart from the final, honestly, the finals are the only part of the electric touring cars to watch because the rest of it is just inane. And X-Prix has that as well. Firstly, I can't actually remember, the Continental section challenge. Basically, that whoever sets the fastest time in this one particular section gets 5 points. Fine, it's not a terrible idea, but 5 points is way too many to give for just being fast over one section. I think that's like a quarter of what the winner gets or something. It's a bit too much. It's a bit like getting... Like if you got 5 points for fastest lap in Formula 1, people are just... Like the race would be ruined because you'd have 10 cars on the last couple of laps who aren't going to score any points. They'll just dive into the pits, get new tyres, come back out and try and set a fastest lap. It does add strategy because at one point the X44 car, it was in a semi-final. Rather than win the semi-final, they dropped back, got some clear open space and set the time in the traction challenge and got the 5 points that helped them win the championship. But great racing it does not make. I don't really like the Noah hyperdrive. They have to use it once each during the race and it doesn't really add anything. I know there's again strategic ways to use it. You can use it during the traction challenge or just get away from your opponents, I guess, or off the start. But I don't think it adds anything. It's just another thing to remember. And I think they were doing like only the top 4 finishes count in the championship. I hate that. I've always hated that. When Formula 1 did it, it was stupid. When any racing series has done it, it's stupid. Super Formula got rid of it. I think this was the first year we didn't have it, and it's better. I hate having race series that discount races like from the championship. Like all these races are part of the championship for a reason. Just have them all add up to the championship. I hate drop points. It's stupid. Get rid of it. But everything else I think has worked, except the way this championship ended. Uruguay was interesting, and there were a lot of crashes, as I said. And in qualifying, it started with RXR, X44, JBXE. They all had big crashes. Obviously, RXR and X44 are going for the championship. This was not a great way to start their weekend. In the second qualifying races, as I said, X44 kind of threw it so they could get the traction challenge. RXR, I think, got damaged. I can't actually remember now. But it meant both cars were in the crazy race. Now the thing with the crazy race is only one of them can get through, meaning whichever one got through would have the best chance of the championship. If RXR got through, they're basically guaranteed it. If X44 got through, they still need to do something, but they're pretty much guaranteed to win the championship. So basically the crazy race decided the Extreme E championship. But there were two other teams in with a shout, the Axiona Science team and Chip Ganassi. It was more of a long shot, but I think Axiona Science, they looked quick all weekend and they weren't that far behind where it was feasible for them to be champions. They lost their semi-final. So even though they out-qualified X44 and RXR, they were kicked out before them because they lost their semi-final races. Now due to incidents that happened in the races, but still, you've lost two championship contenders in the semi-finals before you've got to the crazy race where you're going to lose another one. And so yes, in the crazy race we lost RXR and X44 went through. Should have been easy for them, but they made a bit of a meal of it. I think Loeb actually struggled more than Cristina Gutierrez, and he was fourth. Did the switch. They stayed fourth, but that wasn't enough to win the championship. It was one place shy of what they needed. I think if they finished fourth, they'd be tied on points with RXR but lose on countback. So maybe they weren't doing the drop points thing. I'm sure I read some they were. But it doesn't matter because the Andretti car got a penalty for overspeeding, and so X44 won the championship because the way the races work. They were able to knock out RXR in the crazy race, and Andretti got a penalty in the final. And that's your champions, everyone. It's not a way I like to see championships end. I want to see it happen in real time. Find a way to set the points up so there's a better chance your two championship contenders can get into the final at the end of the race and one-on-one duel it out. There must be a way to do it better than how they've done it, because this was a very anticlimactic championship. And I was very disappointed to see them win it based on a penalty. But as it is, it's not that they don't deserve it. Sebastian Loeb is a fantastic driver with a great history in motorsport. Cristina Gutierrez has done a good job all year. I don't think the women are much slower than the men. I think they're all pretty much even at this point. I think having a couple of years experience, the teams are able to set the cars up in a way where it's pretty equal for everyone. And next year's going to be interesting because the teams, there's been some switches around. Veloce have got a new lineup just for this race and it was better. They got to the final. I think they only finished fifth, but I think they had a few issues. But yeah, I mean, it's disappointing for Kristofferson and especially Michaela Arlin-Kodlitsky, because she especially has driven really well. Replacing Molly Taylor. They've both been fantastic. I mean, you expect from Kristofferson championships every year, and of course he is World Rallycross champion this year. I mean, it would just been another championship to add to his long list. I guess the same goes for Loeb. I was kind of cheering on Carlos Sainz just because I think it'd be funny for an old man to win it, and Carlos Sainz is a fantastic driver. But that was Extreme E, and as I said, the Uruguay Island X-Prix was very entertaining, and 2022 has also been very entertaining. It's a bit too gimmicky for my liking, and I don't necessarily like how it's laid out, but it is going in the right direction, and I am excited for more Extreme E in 2023. What I will end with is the World Touring Cars, which the two Saudi races were better than the Bahrain races. They were still tedious as anything, and this was a really sad way for the series to die. Audi did very well. Berton won the first race, Magnus won the second. Azcona won the championship in qualifying, which again I would have a problem with, but the season is longer and Azcona has basically dominated and really does deserve to be champion. Plus, Nesta Girolami did really badly at Saudi Arabia. I think it was 8th and 10th. I think in the end, Azcona won by like 83 points. So I'm not that pissed that he won in qualifying, but again, it's not a great way for a championship to end, and I wouldn't give as many points for qualifying as they did. Doesn't matter because the series is dead. You saw some great drives from drivers who are getting their first chances at this level. Davidovski, Franco Girolami, both put in really good drives. We've seen a lot from Attila Tassi at this race, especially last race. He's very unlucky to get knocked around. It would be a really interesting driver lineup for 2023, I'm sure, but we're not going to see it in this form, and we'll see how the World Cup or whether they're planning turns out. But it's a bit sad to see the World Touring Car Championship die. I have been watching, honestly, I've been watching this since it was the European Touring Cars back in like 2000. I think I started watching in like 2002, 2003, and I really liked those Alfa Romeos back then, Giovinazzi and the like, Nicola Larini, possibly James Thompson. I've watched it change to World Touring Cars. I've seen that series stagnate, and it did by 2017 when you had just a few Volvos and a few Hondas. That series was pretty hard to watch, but the International TCR series revitalised it. The racing was very entertaining. It's a shame it's all gone to pot, and this was a sad way to say goodbye to the series, but Mikel Azcona is a very worthy champion. He's a fantastic driver, one of the best touring car drivers around right now, and I'm sure next year he'll be doing the electric touring cars. I think that sort of becomes a de facto #1 touring car series. But yeah, it's sad to say goodbye to the World Touring Cars. And that's pretty much it. I'll be doing more videos next week. My reaction to my Formula 1 predictions, and probably the Formula 1 grid predictions as well. Maybe I'll throw out some new Formula 1 grid predictions for 2024. And I've got another big project which hopefully will be coming out next weekend. So make sure you subscribe to the channel because loads of good stuff is coming out. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, and have a good one.